Hello everyone, I am your host Elias Sarantopoulos and welcome yet to another After Effects tutorial creating a social media project and Instagram profile animation. I will teach you how to animate shape layers, how to use the graph editor for smooth animations, how to count numbers, and so many more After Effects tips and tricks. Alright, so let us go ahead and kick this off inside After Effects with a new composition open named Final Render. And if I look inside the composition settings, I'm using HDTV 1080 and I've set the whole duration of the movie to 20 seconds, at least for now. In addition, inside the project panel, I have my Instagram photos, as well as the project files I will be using throughout this Instagram profile animation. So the first thing I'm going to animate actually will be the Instagram logo. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new composition, which I'm going to rename this to Instagram logo. And I'm going to continue, just click OK and use the rest as is. Great. Speaking about Instagram logo, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the original Instagram icon here because I want to use this as a reference because we're going to animate the outer circle, these little dots, and the gradient. So I'm going to press the letter S on the keyboard to bring up the scale property, and I'm going to scale this down to perhaps, let's see, 15%. And at the same time, I'm going to click on the logo icon so I don't accidentally move it. Great. Let's go ahead and right-click and create the first shape layer, which I'm going to click on it and rename this to outer circle. Hit enter return. I'm going to zoom in a bit here so I can see what I'm doing. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and use the rounded rectangle tool. So I'm going to click and drag and I'm going to hold down the space bar if I need to move this around. I'm going to release the space bar. I'm going to continue drawing and going this back and forth till I get the shape that I'm after. So I suspect this looks okay. What is not looking okay is no need for fill. So inside the fill option, set this to none. I'm just going to have inside the stroke options, I'm going to set this to solid color. Of course, I'm going to change the color from white to black just for now, so I'll be able to see what I'm doing. And inside the outer circle, inside the rectangle path 1, I'm going to change the roundness. So I'm going to use the up arrow key to perhaps increase this to 25. And then let's see, I'm going to use the down arrow key to just size this down a bit. I think that looks fine. But inside the stroke, I'm going to set the stroke to 9. Okay, that looks to be okay. I can easily work with that. This is the first shape layer. Let's go ahead and right click and create the second shape layer, which I'm going to click on it, hit enter return and rename this to inner circle. Hit enter return. And for that, I'm going to use the ellipse tool. So I'm going to click and drag and I'm going to hold down the shift key as I do. And at the same time, press the space bar to just place this around here. Now, one thing I would like to mention before I go on too long is that all transformations will take place from this anchor point. So you want to make sure that your anchor point is set right at the center, and that will reflect to every shape layer or whatever file I'm using. So you want to make sure that you go up to the layer menu inside the transform. We're going to go ahead and use the center anchor point in layer content, or you can use the keyboard shortcut, which I'm going to be using quite a lot. So I'm going to use that. You see, I had a very small offset. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut here now. Again, I had a small offset. All right. Again, because I want all transformations to take place from the very center. Great. Let's do one more. Let's create one more shape layer, which I'm going to click on it and rename this to dot. And let's see, no need for a stroke, just a fill as a solid color. And I'm going to click and drag and create a circle as such. Okay. Again, I want to make sure that the anchor point is right at the center. And I believe we're ready to go and proceed on the animation, at least for these shape layers. So I'm going to focus first on the outer circle. Let's say inside the contents here, I'm going to actually add, I'm going to click on the add flat menu, and I'm going to add a trim paths operator. Now, with a trim path, what we do is we make a shape layer draw on or draw off by animating the start and end property. As for the offset value, it basically moves both the starting and end points of the stroke. So I'm going to make sure that the current time indicator is at the very beginning, and I'm going to set the first keyframe on the end property by clicking on the stopwatch on the offset to set another keyframe. So for the end, I'm going to set this to 0%. And for the offset, I'm going to set this to 90 degrees. I'm going to scrub the current time indicator to perhaps, let's say, 1 second here or so. And I'm going to set the end to 100% and set the offset back to 0. So let's see how this animates. I'm going to press the space bar for the RAM preview, and I'm going to be doing this a lot, so let's keep that in mind. Space bar to preview RAM preview animation. Great. That looks great, right? But it's slow. So I'm going to marquee select these 2 keyframes, and I'm going to bring them closer to each other. And I think I can live with that, at least for now. All right. Now, I'm going to RAM preview this one more time, and I want you to see that the animation basically here is a very monotonous animation. Why? Because we have basically what we call a linear animation with constant motion and constant velocity, which means not very interesting animation. So we're going to go ahead and target the end properties. I'm going to go ahead and click on the graph editor. And if I look inside the graph type, I'm using for now the speed graph. But of course, you can use the value graph as well. Now, these 2 are the keyframes. And this straight segment tells us that this is a linear interpolation. So I'm going to marquee select these 2 keyframes, and I'm going to change the interpolation to, let's say, easy is. There we go. And then I'm going to actually do this manually. Now, these here are the influence handles that you can actually use. But what I like to do is double click on that. And I'm going to set, let's make sure this is 0. I'm going to set the incoming to 70%. Click OK. And I'm going to double click on that. And I'm going to set the outgoing velocity to also 70%. I'm going to do the same one here. I'm going to marquee select those 2 keyframes, and I'm going to change the linear interpolation to easy is, and I'm going to target this, double click to bring up the keyframe velocity, set the incoming velocity to 70%, double click on that, and set the outgoing velocity to also 70%. So let's go ahead and RAM preview this, press the space bar. Beautiful. See that? Great. Okay, so I'm going to copy this because I don't want to do this again. Control C or Command C to copy the trim paths operator. And then I'm going to paste it on the inner circle, but I will try to time this. So let's say around here, this will start animating. So I'm just going to paste that. I'm also going to press the letter U on the keyboard to bring up the visible keyframe properties. Let's RAM preview this and press the letter U here as well. Let me bring those 2 closer. Great. Okay, I'm going to go with that. Then we have the dot. So for the dot, I'm actually going to animate the opacity. So the keyboard shortcut for that is the letter T for opacity. So this will start animating around here. So click on the stopwatch to create the first keyframe. Move the current time indicator to around here. Let's go ahead and add another keyframe. I'm going to press the letter J on the keyboard to go to the previous visible keyframe. And I'm going to set this to 0. And I'm going to scrub the cursor indicator to the very beginning of the timeline and do a RAM preview. Perhaps I can move those a little closer. Perfect. I don't need to do anything with these keyframes. Linear interpolation is okay. It's not a big deal. Okay. There we go. All right. Again, another thing you can do, you can bring this a little closer and maybe this can start a little faster. Okay. In any case, I like what I see, but we're not done yet because first we have to animate the gradient. And speaking about the gradient, here is the Instagram gradient PNG, which I'm going to drag this right here. Now, I don't need to see this anymore, so I'm going to toggle off the visibility. And I'm going to target this one. So I'm going to press the letter S. I'm going to scale this down quite a lot. I don't know, let's go for 7%. Let's animate this. Perfect. I like the size, but first this is to animate, which means I'm going to shift select all of these, press the letter U to show all the keyframes, and I'm going to actually offset this in time a bit. So the gradient will first animate, right? So let's do that. What is going to animate? Actually, let's go ahead and animate the scale. So I'm going to press on the stopwatch to create the first keyframe. And perhaps around here, I'm going to add another keyframe. I'm going to jump back to the first keyframe by pressing the letter J. And I'm going to set this to 0. RAM preview. Not bad. But again, the animation is linear animation. So let's go ahead inside the graph editor. Let's mark you select this 2. Set this to easy is. But what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to only bring this influence handle to the other end here. So it will start very fast, it will peak, and then it will die down. So let's go ahead and play this. See that? I can also extend the time just a bit. All right. Let's do this one more time. See if we like it. Perfect. Now what I need to change is I'm going to shift select this 2 and change the stroke color to white, of course. And I'm going to click on the dots, change the fill color to white. And I'm going to do one more RAM preview here to just double check my work. And I really like what I see. Don't forget to save, controls to save, commands to save. All right, so let us go ahead and continue this by adding more shape layers and animate more elements for the Instagram logo. So I'm going to right click and create a new shape layer, which I'm going to click on it, hit enter, return, and rename this to line. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here a lot and I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm just going to click and drag to create a shape as such. Okay, no need for stroke, just a fill. And then inside, let's see the contents here inside the rectangle path. When you hover over this icon here, it says constrain proportions. So I'm going to click on the chain icon to unconstrain the proportions. And I'm going to set this perhaps to 3. And this one perhaps can stay as it is. All right. So let's see. Now, another thing that I see here is that the anchor point is not set on the very center. So again, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut. There we go. I'm just going to take a look. Perhaps I can bring this to 110. All right, something along those lines, and maybe bring this a little closer. All right, so I'm not going to animate this yet. First of all, I'm going to bring one more element, which is the Instagram text logo. Now, this is an Illustrator file, right? Now, you can leave this as is, but the problem is we're kind of limited when it comes to Illustrator files, because when we open up the transformations here, we only have access to the general transformations. Basically, what we want to do is we want to convert this to a shape layer. So I'm going to go up to the layer menu and I'm going to use create and then create shapes from vector layer. I'm going to delete the original Illustrator file and I'm going to focus on this one. Let me press enter return to rename this to just Instagram text logo. And if you click inside and open up the contents, now we have all the attributes for a shape layer, which, as you saw earlier, is very powerful. All right, great. This is one thing. Another thing is we want to make sure that this is a little smaller. So I'm going to press the letter S. I'm going to scale this down quite a bit. And let's see, I'm going to position this here. Let's go down to 50%. Something along those lines. Okay. All right. So let's see. Do I like this? All right. Seems to be fine. So what I'm going to do now, it's time to animate both. First, I'm going to focus on this one, the line. So when this one ends, the other one will animate. So I'm going to press the letter S for scale. I'm going to set the first keyframe. And I'm going to scrub the current time indicator perhaps here and add another keyframe. Press the letter J to go to the previous visible keyframe. And I'm going to set this to 0. Let's quickly press the space bar for the RAM preview. Nice. Okay. Definitely we need to change the interpolation here. So I'm going to go inside the graph editor, marquee select this 2. I'm going to use the easy is, and perhaps I can click on this keyframe here and just move the influence handle just by itself to 100%, which means this is going to start very fast, is going to peak right there, and then at the end is going to start dying down. All right, it's going to slow down. Let me extend the distance between those two keyframes. See that? Nice. I really like what I see. So this is one thing. Now, how about the Instagram logo? Well, let me show you a trick here. We're going to do a reveal here. So for that, I'm going to create a new shape layer, which I'm going to rename this to cover box. All right. So basically, we're going to use this cover box, which I'm going to draw it right now. All right. We're going to use this cover box as a transparency to the layer below. So when we select the Instagram text logo, this here is going to look at the layer directly above it, which is this one, and is going to determine its transparency using the track matte. Okay, so for the track matte here, you need to click on the toggle switches and modes. Right now, I am on the switches, so I'm going to click on the modes here. Here's the track matte. So I'm going to set the Instagram text logo to alpha matte cover box. See? So now the only thing we're going to do is animate the position of the Instagram text logo. So press the letter P on your keyboard for that. I'm going to set the first keyframe here and perhaps the other one right there. And then I'm going to press the letter J and I'm going to scrub this. See that? The box is the transparency here. So let's run preview this. Perfect. Do I like the time? Time seems to be okay. Let's go ahead and change the linear interpolation to easy is, and perhaps let me double click on that. Set this to 70. Set this to 70 as well. And let's go ahead and run preview this. Perfect. Great. See how nice it looks? Let's zoom out here a bit. And let's play this RAM preview one more time. I really like what I see, okay? Don't forget to save, Control is to save, Command is to save. Now, one more thing I would like to mention before we close this part up. This Instagram logo composition will reside inside the funnel render composition. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this into the timeline. And then I'm just going to scrub the current time indicator just a bit. And then I'm going to start moving this around. And as I do, notice that actually the size of this is exactly the same size of the funnel render composition, which is quite big. In this case, we need to trim the Instagram logo comp to the size of its contents. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we're going to jump back to the Instagram logo composition. And then we're going to use something called region of interest inside After Effects. And we can find this at the bottom of the composition panel. Here it is. Click on that. And then just click and drag to define the region of interest. Like so. And once you're done, go to the composition menu and then use the crop comp to region of interest, like so. Then I'm going to jump to the funnel render, and here is exactly what I was looking for. In this case, I'm going to scale this down, so I'm going to press the letter S on the keyboard for the scale property, and I'm just going to size this down to, let's say, 40%. Let's bring this here, and then I'm going to place it right there on the top, like so, right? So let's go ahead and do a quick RAM preview. There we go. Just don't forget to save. Control is to save, Command is to save. The next composition that is going to populate inside the funnel render composition will be the Instagram profile. So here I have, as you can see, I have a logo, I have a stroke, I have my credentials, and I have all these numbers for the posts, followers, and following. Now, everything we're going to animate. And the cool trick is actually we're going to animate those numbers counting from 0. So let me go ahead and show you all that stuff. I'm going to make sure that the current time indicator is at the very beginning. I'm going to focus on the logo, and I'm going to animate its opacity. So that would be the letter T on the keyboard. I'm going to set the first keyframe, and I'm going to set this to 0%. I'm going to scrub the current time indicator just a bit and set the next keyframe to 100. Nothing special, just opacity. Great. Now let's focus on the stroke circle. And basically this is another shape layer that inherits all the attributes of a shape layer, which, as we know already, it's very powerful. So I'm going to click on the Add Flat menu and add a Trim Paths operator. In this case, I'm going to, again, animate the end and the offset. I'm going to set the end to 0% and the offset to 90 degrees. Now, by all means, you don't have to use the same numbers that I do. You can use your numbers and experiment what works for you, because every example is just different. So let's go ahead and RAM preview this. Nice. Problem is, it's too slow, so I'm going to bring this closer. Okay. A little bit closer too. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, click on the end. Property, bring the graph editor. I'm going to make sure that I am inside the speed graph. Marquee select these 2 keyframes. I'm going to change the linear interpolation to easy is. And I'm just going to focus on this keyframe, which I'm going to bring in the influence handle to 100%. Do the same here. Marquee select these 2 keyframes. Easy is. I'm going to bring this one only to 100%. So let's go ahead and press spacebar to RAM preview this. Beautiful. Okay. I like what I see. Next up is the credentials here. So this animates. So again, I'm going to animate the opacity. So the letter T. Set the first keyframe. I'm going to make sure this is set to 0. Scrub the current time indicator a little bit and to 100. Let's play that. Perfect. So I don't need to do this again. What I'm going to do is select the opacity, copy this, Control C or Command C. And then I'm going to click on this one, move the current time indicator a little bit closer, paste that, Control V, Command V to paste. And let's play that. See? And of course I can fix the time. I will paste this here too. So let's go ahead and open up all these keyframes here. I'm going to press the letter U. Here are all the keyframes that I'm working on. And as you can see, this animates a bit slow. So I'm going to time this better by moving keyframes in between. Also, we don't need to change the interpolation from linear to another, let's say to easy is, because after all, we just animate the opacity property. Now, I like what I see, and next we're going to focus on counting the numbers for the posts or followers, for example, from 0 and onwards. Alright, so we finished animating the circle and the credentials here. Now it's time to work on these numbers, animating those numbers starting from 0 and counting upwards, from 0 to 300, from 0 to 700, and so on. It is actually not that difficult. So let me show you how. I'm going to target the number 300, and inside the effect menu and under the expression controls, I'm going to go ahead and use this slider control. Now you can do the same, of course, inside the effects and presets. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. First of all, we have the source text, but also inside the effects, we have the slider control and then the slider itself. So basically what we need to do is we need to connect the source text with the slider. So for that, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click on the stopwatch to create an expression. Here we go. And then I'm going to take the pick whip here and just drag this right on top of the slider. So now we have an expression. This is not correct yet. First of all, let's set some keyframes. So around here, I'm going to set a keyframe for the slider from 0 to, let's say, to 300, of course. So if I was to run preview this, press a space bar for the run preview, we get these funny decimal numbers. You see, you don't want to have so many decimals here. Okay, you want to have round numbers, and the keyword is round here. So basically what we need to do is we need to fix the expression. So just make sure that you're at the very beginning of the expression and type with capital math and then dot round. Okay, hit enter. And what we need to do is we need to take this, cut this, Control X or Command X, and then move it inside here, paste it inside here. Just make sure that you also have an and parenthesis, because if I was to click on that, you see I'm missing the parenthesis. You can see this here. So just make sure that you close the parenthesis, and that should work. You see, it didn't give us any errors here. So let's go ahead and do a run preview. Perfect. You see, this can be a little faster. There we go. All right. Something along those lines. You don't need to have anything but a linear animation here. It's very okay to keep that. Now, this is one thing. Once this animates, also, let's not forget, the posts will animate. So probably the posts will animate first. Let's see. All together, I'm going to press the letter T for opacity. Set the first keyframe to 0 and scrub this a bit and set the other keyframe to 100%. Then I'm going to press the letter U to see all the visible keyframes, and actually I want to have those two together. Okay, let's run preview this for a second. See that? There we go. Again, this is something that you can work on. You can probably have, like I say, the number doesn't appear at all. It's totally up to you. But I like what I see. I'm going to keep it as is. And the next actually is exactly the same. We're going to focus on the number. We're going to use the slider control, write the expression, and continue this. All right, so I'm going to continue this on my own, and I'm going to see you on the next part. All right, so let's go ahead and RAM preview this one more time, and I want to show you what I did here on my own. Basically, if you notice, none of these numbers appear in the beginning. So let me show you what I did. Just going to press the letter U for the visible keyframes. And here's the opacity. You see that? So I have just opacity from 0 to 100. These are the numbers. So I slightly offset this so we have a nice ease into this. Okay, that's not abruptly. Okay, so I did this for all the keyframes. Great. So let's go back to the funnel render here. And let's see, inside the project, I'm going to bring in the Instagram profile. There we go. And if I was to RAM preview this, well, first of all, this looks great, but we have to offset this in time. That's number one. So this one finishes, and then this one begins. Okay. Perhaps a little bit here, and you get the idea. Just repeat the same process and use the region of interest and trim the Instagram profile composition to its contents as we did before. And now we're ready to go to the next step, populating Instagram photos into the profile feed. So the next composition to populate inside the funnel render composition will be a bunch of individual compositions, each one of them representing an Instagram photo. So let's go ahead and look inside the Instagram photos that I have imported inside After Effects. And whichever I choose, as you can see, all of them have exactly the same width and height, which is 600 by 600, which means each of these individual compositions that we will insert into the timeline inside the funnel render will also have exactly the same dimensions as the Instagram photos. So let us go ahead and create the first Instagram photo composition. First of all, I'm going to rename this to Instagram Photo 1, and I'm going to change the width to 600 by 600 pixels, and I'm going to click OK. Now, from the Instagram Photos folder, just going to click and drag the first Instagram photo here. And the only thing actually I'm going to animate, it will be the position property, and that is the letter P on the keyboard. So I'm going to create the first keyframe. I'm going to scrub the current time indicator just a bit, create another keyframe, go to the very beginning here, and then I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to bring this outside the canvas of the composition. And if I press the space bar for the RAM preview, this is what we get. And as you can see, this is just a linear animation with constant speed and constant velocity, which means let's go ahead and make something more interesting. So for that, again, I'm going to click on the graph editor. And as I have been working before, I'm inside the speed graph, but right now I'm going to change and go to the value graph. Okay, now we see a couple of things different. In the value graph, some properties consist of more than one value or dimension, and that is the case with the position property. It consists of two values. Here we have the position X, and here we have the position Y. The position Y is flat because there is no movement, there is no animation. We only have animation or movement to the position X. Okay, so this is one thing. Now let's go ahead and select all those keyframes and change the linear interpolation to easy is. And let me show you what happened here. We get this S-curve, but this S-curve, as you can see, there are no handles coming out of this X position keyframes. In order for us to manipulate the curve, as we did before with the speed graph. Therefore, we are not able to edit the S-curve with the position property that has both values locked to each other. So the trick here is to right-click and separate those dimensions. Now, if I click on the S-curve, we can see the handles coming out. In this case, we don't need the Y position. There's no animation. So I'm going to get rid of any keyframes here. So I'm going to focus on the X position. I'm going to marquee select again those two keyframes, and I'm going to use again the easy is, and here is exactly what I want it to be. So this is the X position, and we have the second keyframe. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm just going to drag this out a bit, and then I'm going to take this handle and I'm going to push it out, up this way. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to have an animation that starts fast and then it slows down. Let's press the spacebar for the run preview. Nice. So a couple of things I can change here. Because we are on the value graph, we can adjust the position property value, which means I can select this keyframe and change the value over time by changing its position and make it just a tad slower. There we go. I really like what I see. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and copy this Control-C or Command-C to copy. And I'm going to show you one more example of how I go about to create the easy way, the second Instagram photo composition. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to duplicate this, Control-D or Command-D. I'm going to double click to get inside the Instagram photo 2. In this case, I'm going to bring in the second Instagram photo right here inside the timeline. I'm going to remove this one, so press the delete key. Now, you want to make sure that the current time indicator is at the very, very beginning of the timeline. And then click on this and then paste, Control-V or Command-V to paste. So if I run this animation again, here it is. It's exactly the same animation as we had before. All right. So basically, this is the way we're going to do this with duplicating one Instagram photo composition after another. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this till I populate perhaps 9 or 12 different Instagram photo compositions. And then we're going to continue this and put them inside the funnel render composition. All right, so let us go ahead and populate each of these Instagram photo compositions into the funnel render composition. Now, before I do that, I'm going to actually organize myself a little bit here because there are way too many compositions inside the project panel here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, which I'm going to rename to Instagram photo compositions. And inside there, I'm going to host all these individual Instagram photo compositions like so. I highly recommend you do that so you organize yourself and you find exactly whatever you need to find inside your After Effects movie. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring the first 3 photos. So I'm going to click and drag and bring them into the timeline. Okay, as you can see, these are quite big. So I'm going to press the S on my keyboard for the scale. And I'm going to scale those down quite a bit to perhaps, let's see, 24%. I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to select the first one. Let me bring this right there. So I have the third right on top. And the first one is going to be right there. And I'm going to use the left arrow key to position this perfectly to the left edge. The third one will be right there. Again, I'm going to use the right arrow key to align this to the right edge. Now I'm going to shift select those 3 compositions, and inside the align panel, I'm going to make sure that these are distributed vertically and they're distributed equally horizontally. You see there was a slight shift, and at the same time, I'm going to make sure they align to the top. Perfect. These are the first 3. Now, we need to actually offset them in time. So let me drag this out of the way quite a bit. So the animation begins. We have the profile, the numbers show up, and around here, I'm going to have the first photo appearing. I'm going to offset the other one and offset this one too. Let's play that here. Perfect. Now, another thing I can do is just to spice things up just a little bit. I can go inside, let's say, this one, the first Instagram photo composition. And what I can do is basically bring up enable the motion blur. Now, if you don't see that, that means you need to click on the toggles, switches, and modes. All right. So right now we are on the modes. I'm going to go to the switches here, and I'm going to activate the motion blur. Do you see that? There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to enable the motion blur, and I'm going to enable the motion blur here too. And let's see how these things work. There's a slight, as you can see, just a bit of a motion blur, which is great. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this and populate the whole thing with perhaps nine photos altogether, or 12, we'll see, depending the space. And we're going to pick this up right after that to perhaps close this After Effects tutorial. All right, so I added the rest of the Instagram photo compositions inside the final render composition, enabling the motion blur as well for the rest of the Instagram photos, as you can see here. Great, things are looking good. Now, one more motion that we can add here is the mobile device coming from the bottom and then the Instagram profile animation to begin. So let us go ahead and do that. First of all, I'm going to shift select all of these layers, and I'm going to offset them in time a bit. I'm going to unlock the iPhone 12 Pro here, and I'm going to press the letter P on the keyboard because we're going to basically keyframe its position. So I'm going to set the first keyframe here. I'm going to scrub the current time indicator a bit and set the next keyframe. I'm going to go back to the very beginning, and then I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to hold down the shift key as I do. And I'm going to bring this outside the canvas of the composition. Let's go ahead and press the spacebar for the RAM preview, and here's the motion. Okay, not sure if I like this yet, but right now, as you can see, we have a linear animation, a linear interpolation. So again, we're going to go inside the graph editor. I'm going to marquee select these two keyframes, and I'm going to use easy is, and then I'm going to double click on the incoming velocity. I'm going to change that to 70%. Let's go ahead and change the outgoing velocity to also 70%. All right. So let's go ahead and RAM preview this. Nice. I like what I see. Everything seems to be in the time that I want it to be. All right, great. Now, this After Effects Instagram profile animation doesn't have to end here. There's a lot you can do on your end to continue this and develop your profile even further, such as showing individual photos, videos, stories, or what have you. Now, in the event that you want to add this Instagram profile animation to that, let us go ahead and trim the final render composition, but first looking at the animation and see what it ends. So it doesn't aimlessly just continue without any motion. So I believe it ends around here. Then I'm going to press the letter N on the keyboard to set the end of the work area. And then I'm going to right click in here and then trim comp to work area. Let's go ahead and press the space bar for RAM preview. And now we have only the animation without things dragging on and on. All right. This is what we wanted to accomplish, and give it a shot on your end. I would like to thank each one of you for visiting my channel, watching the inspiring lectures and project tutorials. Do not forget to subscribe and share the knowledge.